Welcome to Pork Chops, Rice, and Peaches. I'm Richard.
I'm Noah.
And today, for only the second time in the history of Pork Chops, Rice, and Peaches, we are doing a request. A viewer request. And we love viewer requests. And so this was an easy one to film.
Yes.
An easy one to fulfill. The Crimson Mogul, back on... It was the video of Blair Witch Project, wasn't it?
It was a couple.
Yeah.
It was in October.
It was in October. It's one of our Hollywood videos. Asked if we ever did Wes Anderson movies, and specifically talked about the aquatic life.
The Life Aquatic.
The Life Aquatic with Steve Zissou.
Yeah.
Which I had never heard of.
I had never heard of this either. And I'll be completely honest. I'll say first thing that was said, I think the first comment we saw was, have you watched or reviewed or seen any Wes Anderson movies? And there wasn't a specific request.
Right.
It was just Wes Anderson movies.
Right.
So I looked up Wes Anderson, and I thought it would be the funniest thing ever to just do Fantastic Mr. Fox. Because that was the first one that came up. Which is
we did talk about that one.
We did talk about doing that one. But then The Life Aquatic was specifically requested. So we decided to do that one instead. So here we are doing The Life Aquatic.
So since this came up in October, in my head, I heard, I saw Wes Anderson. I heard, what is it, Wes Craven? There's a horror director that goes by Wes, right?
Yeah.
And so I was assuming that this was going to be a horror movie.
Yeah.
So I was very surprised when I discovered in searching for it that it is not.
Yeah. It was...
anything but
a very interesting. I'm pulling it up. The comments.
Okay.
It's right here. The Life Aquatic with Steve Zissou
for future review, and we are here.
We are here.
So, when did you? I watched it last night.
I also watched it last night,
and
I like to watch things. I honestly prefer watching things before we review, but we're doing this earlier than we typically do, so I don't have the time.
Oh, gotcha.
To do a pre-watch. So I like to watch it as close to the review as possible, so it's as fresh in my mind as possible. What'd you think of this? I got some notes. And I kind of just sat with this face the whole time I'm watching the movie. I was kind of going. That's kind of my reaction the whole movie.
I can say that I understand why this movie bombed at the box office, and I can understand why this movie has a cult following, why it has taken off, because this movie is quirky.
Very.
This movie is okay. So hang on, before we go any further into this movie, you and I had a slight miscommunication yesterday.
Yes, we did.
And the miscommunication is absolutely hysterical because of this. We missed the title, The Life Aquatic.
Yep.
Right? And so I text Noah and I said, hey, what was that movie we're supposed to be watching? And
did I say Shape of Water?
You said The Shape of Water.
Okay, that is completely different. I think it was there's something like water themed in here, and I think someone had mentioned The Shape of Water recently.
I sit down and I get on Amazon, and your mom and I purchase The Shape of Water, and we start watching, and I have to finish it. I absolutely have to finish it.
That is a weird movie. But it's a weird movie.
Have you seen it?
I have seen it. It's a very weird movie.
Okay, so
maybe we should do that at some point.
Well, we should. I'm glad you've seen it. We should, because we're sitting there watching this movie that opens up in a flooded apartment with a girl described as a princess floating.
Yeah.
And then we get this mute girl going through her daily life, and it's odd because we're not prudes. Okay, full frontal nudity, not that big of a deal. She climbs into the bathtub. But then she starts getting herself off. And your mom and I are like, wow, what's going on here? And so then we watch the movie, and it has this really kind of intriguing plot line, and she meets this creature.
Isn't it a Del Toro film?
It is.
Guillermo del Toro?
Yes, it is.
Yeah.
And so we see her feed this creature the hard-boiled egg, and then she goes, apparently this bathtub ritual is a morning ritual for this lady. But so she's got this life, and she's got these scars on her neck.
Yeah.
And we're 15, 20 minutes into the movie.
I was wondering where this story.
When your mom and I stopped and said two things. One was, I don't think this is the movie we're supposed to be watching.
Yeah.
Right? Okay. So your mother pulls up the right title of the movie. And then I just looked at her and I said, she's going to be one of these creatures. Those aren't scratch marks from being clawed on her neck. Those are the gills healing. Right? Now, I have no idea if I'm even close on that one. All right?
All right. So
but I'm going to finish the movie, and we're
going to talk about The Shape of Water eventually.
Like, maybe next week.
Okay.
We'll do a double because our One Piece fans are...
Yes.
Right. And I promised them a November One Piece.
That's true.
We'll do a double next week. So we turned that off, and I'm just thinking to myself, wow, why would someone request that movie? But then we turn on this Bill Murray movie. All right.
The Life Aquatic.
So we went from strange to stranger. Because okay. All right. So we didn't have any self-fulfillment on the... Right. Right. But we sat there going... Through a good portion of this. And the Life Aquatic is beautifully filmed.
Very.
It is creative.
Yes, it is.
The graphics, the obvious, I don't want to call it CGI on the fish because on all the creatures, because I don't want to...
It looked almost stop motion.
It was. Actually, some of it was.
I believe wholeheartedly that a lot of
some of it was. I did
motion.
A tiny bit of research on it.
Okay.
Yes.
All right.
It was stop motion, and it was beautiful.
Mm-hmm.
It was absolutely beautiful.
It was a very gorgeous film.
And the movie was quirky.
Very.
And the movie was this hodgepodge for me, of recollections and images because of something that I grew up with that you didn't.
Yeah, okay.
I grew up with Jacques Cousteau.
Yes.
Right. And obviously...
Which I got the connection.
Right.
It was very obviously, but...
But Jacques Cousteau was a weekly thing in our house. When my family lived with my grandparents, when we were all in that house, there were things that we always watched every week. My grandmother and my grandfather wanted to watch that.
Okay.
All right. And so, the Julie Andrews show, the Carol Burnett show, Hee Haw, Lawrence Welk. I mean, these were standards. Jacques Cousteau was one of those weekly things, right? And so I'm looking at the hats and I'm like, okay, this is, this homage to Jacques Cousteau. I get it. And I don't know if you're aware, but Jacques Cousteau lost one of his sons. Yeah. In an aviation accident. I mean, the parallels are painfully obvious.
Well, doesn't it say, like, right at the end, basically an excerpt saying, this was essentially what was intended?
You know what? I missed it if it was on screen.
It was at the end of so they have the credits where he's walking and he's got the group coming with him, like each individual member joins, and then they cut to the dude singing David Bowie in Portuguese.
Right.
And there's a big splash about like the connection to Jacques Cousteau. I couldn't read it. It flashed so fast. I couldn't read all of it. Well, it says something about Jacques Cousteau, and I think like related imagery or something.
Well, okay. I mean, it was painful, right? Right there. And now Jacques Cousteau, if you've done any research into his life, a French naval officer, an early pioneer of developing scuba. Yep. And so, and then just the bringing the underwater world to the masses through his program was absolutely amazing. Never gave any thought to what might be going on behind the scenes. Yeah. Right. So you get the quirkiness, you get the nostalgia of my childhood.
It was shot on film, very obviously. It was.
It was?
It looks very, well, if not, it was a very very good filter.
So this is a 2004 film that could have gone either way.
Yeah, but I feel like it looked like it was shot on almost home film.
Okay.
Just a very clean. It looked very clean.
I was impressed with the cast of this movie.
That was my first note. I'm sitting there, I'm 5 minutes into the movie, and my first note that I write down, because this is how my mind works when watching these movies, is what the hell is this cast? This is a bunch of A-listers.
This is a huge bunch of A-listers. How did they get all of them in?
So you got Bill Murray.
Right.
You got Willem Dafoe.
Yep.
You've got...
which was kind of a quirky role for Willem Dafoe.
I mean, that describes his career. You have Goldblum. You have
Owen Wilson.
Owen Wilson. You have what's her name?
Kate Blanchett.
Kate Blanchett. That was
right.
it. Yep.
Angelica Houston.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Michael Gambon. And it's kind of interesting because
this would be right around the time before he would take over. After.
Right. I think right before.
Right before, I think.
But the voice.
Yeah.
He has such a distinct voice.
Yes, he does.
Right.
Yes,
and so I recognized the voice before I recognized his face.
Well, you barely see him. You hear his voice first, but yeah, again, he's unmistakable. You hear his voice, and you're like, "Yep, okay, that's Michael Gibbs."
So you have this all-star cast. I can only imagine what the salary payroll was. On a movie that
must
big,
have been massive.
And then of course you have this aspect. Now I had heard a long time ago that Bill Murray, as he transitioned to more serious roles, actually had some acting chops.
Mm-hmm.
That as I'm watching this movie, I'm like, okay, you have a man who is essentially a skit comedian.
Mm-hmm.
Who made a career of movies which were extended skits where he showed his comedic chops, right? He's exceedingly funny. He's creative. He's impromptu. He gets comedy.
Mm-hmm.
And I can see where he earned his credits for serious acting because this movie is this blend, but there's elements that are just pure Bill Murray. It's like someone managed to take Bill Murray and harness him.
Yes.
And pull it in.
Yes.
Because there were elements of his delivery that were every character he's ever done on screen.
Exactly, yeah. But then
yet there was the essence.
It felt weird to watch because it didn't feel like you were watching Bill Murray.
Yes.
That's it. And then then there's times where it does feel like you're watching Bill Murray.
But at the same time, it never felt like you were watching this character, Steve Zissou. And that's the problem, is that you never had 100% buy into the character.
Yeah. But
it's almost like it was an entire tongue-in-cheek performance.
It kind of feels like it was.
Yes.
I don't know. It's so weird. This movie is so weird.
It is.
It's so weird because then again, it's like you got on the other side, you've got like Willem Dafoe, who's very obviously Willem Dafoe.
Right.
You cannot escape the fact that he's a very distinct face.
Yes, he is.
He has a very distinct face, and he has some very distinct performance quirks. But he's playing this German,
which I kind of threw me.
Yeah, it threw me for a loop, and I kind of was just kind of entranced by it. The performance and the character, which there's a surprising amount of character development, but it's a really weird character development for most of these.
All of this, and so I curiosity, I absolutely had to find out, and I Googled, was Kate Blanchett pregnant during this movie, because the prosthetic that she wore was so good.
Yeah.
Right?
Mm-hmm.
And then what I read was that apparently she passed out during the fitting and found out that she was actually pregnant.
Oh, jeez.
So she's got 4 kids with her husband.
Okay.
And she was actually pregnant during filming.
Okay.
She was just a whole lot earlier along than the prosthetic device that she was wearing. But I don't know. I think one of the things that I enjoyed the most about the movie, and this is so stupid silly, but they had the design underwater in the bow of the ship where they had all of the portholes.
Mm-hmm.
and
the viewing
halls,
thing.
right? And the uses of that, because when they dropped Kingsley's coffin into the water, and there's Angelica Houston just looking out the
smoking a cigarette,
right? As this thing floats by past her, and I just thought, this is kind of subdued hysterical.
Yeah, it is.
You know,
it is. The humor in this is almost blink and you miss it. There's a lot of like one-liners that if you're not paying attention, they will just pass you by.
So, you know, I don't think there's things that there's just quirky things about the movie. All of the gunfights, there were a whole lot of bullets flying for nobody getting shot. I mean, nobody could aim. This was a movie where stormtroopers took their armor off and fired guns.
That's what I was thinking.
Everybody missed. But
half of them are just standing there. They're just standing there in the background, just holding a gun or holding a machete or whatever, and they're just standing there because even the character knows they're not going to get hit, you know?
Well, yeah, it does kind of feel that way, doesn't it?
Yeah, that's what it feels like.
So I will say this. There's really not a whole lot to say. This is a movie I will watch again, which for me to say, that means, you know, right? Because I'd like to take a second look at this movie, see what I missed on the first viewing.
It's a long movie.
It is a long movie.
It's I feel like a couple viewings would do some good.
Very slow pacing. And it's one of the reasons why it died in the box office.
Probably,
right?
Yeah. Movies like this have a tendency not to do well in the box office, but they typically do better after.
Yeah.
They typically have a cult following.
It's very artsy.
Yeah.
Right?
I love because this was very much shot like more of an art house film. It very much felt like that. Which I typically am not the biggest fan of art house films. Because, you know, I go to movies for entertainment, but this movie was entertaining as well. So
yes, it was
good. But I love the tracking, and it's very obviously the half ship set.
Yes.
I'm like, that's amazing. That's awesome. I love that.
I read a line somewhere as I was doing basic research that said that was one of the basic ideas. It wasn't the inspiration for the films was Wes Anderson saw a cutout of a ship and right. I love the way the camera tracked people moving. That was a wonderful set.
Yes, it was. Yes, it was.
And I have to say this, I absolutely love the suggestion and thank you.
Yeah, thank
Crimson
you
Mobile
seriously
for this, because I will now watch more of his movies.
Okay.
This movie got me. This movie got me. I will watch more of his movies because it's quirky, it's fun, it's different, it's entertaining. I don't think I'll get your mother to watch them with me because her final thoughts was it was the strangest movie that I've ever seen. And I'm thinking, really? Because you saw the first 20 minutes of The Shape of Water. Like, are you sure you want to make that claim? But yeah, this was just really fun. It was a good movie.
Okay. Yeah. It's so funny because we're talking about how weird it is and how quirky it is. Why is there a massive snake in the middle of the gunfight? There's just a big yellow snake right there.
I know. And was that really there or was that a CGI?
That looked real. It looked real.
Yeah. Oh yeah. These little creatures, they pop up everywhere in the movie, and you kind of just because they're established early.
There's also the monkey. The monkeys just in the hotel.
Yep.
Yeah. All the aquatic life was hilarious because what was it? A rhinestone bluefin or something? A rhinestone swordfish or something was used as bait, and they show it. And it's actually covered in rhinestones.
Right.
Am I supposed to how am I supposed to take this? How am I supposed to take
I had the same problem.
Supposed to be like,
am I supposed to laugh out loud? Am I supposed to are they in a different
I'm very
world?
confused by how the aquatic scenes were portrayed. Because I'm like, up above, everything is played like straight. The animals are mostly real. There's no quirky features about that. Is it supposed to be like that's how the audience of his films see the aquatic life that he portrays? Is this quirky, weird, alien? That's the thing about art house films that like typically get you asking weird questions like that.
I just had a realization.
Yeah.
Okay, listening to you, this is kind of fun. The first quirky one that I noticed was the crayon ponyfish.
Yes.
Which the little German kid, right, in the traditional lederhosen outfit, like through the whole movie, he only appears in that, right?
Yeah.
He gives it to Steve Zissou. A typical Bill Murray character would have taken the bag and said, "Thank you," and turned and dropped it into a trash can or something. But he, when the bag got punctured,
pours it into a thing,
champagne flute, and carries it out. Okay, so you establish that his character cares about these creatures.
Yes.
Okay.
And he actually knows a decent amount about these creatures because he's always pointing out these.
Right. It was a seahorse.
Yes.
It was clearly a seahorse.
Yes.
Okay. With Crayola crayon colors. I get it.
Yeah.
But ponyfish was such an odd name, right? Okay. Yeah. And this is another one of those things where you don't know whether you're supposed to laugh or not. I mean, right? That's one of the things. But I did notice that it wasn't a typical Murray character that would dismiss something like that. So he obviously cares about the boy, cares about the boy's feelings, cares about the creature, saves it in the champagne flute, takes it out. Okay, so he cares about the aquatic life.
Yes.
Which also establishes the fact that since the obvious parallels to Moby Dick,
which was, this was just Moby Dick, but Captain Ahab.
It had both legs.
Let's go.
And so he goes out on this revenge quest to kill the jaguar shark that killed his best friend and his longtime collaborator and partner, which of course when he finally sees the shark and is overtaken by its beauty and its natural element, and he has the moment of letting go of the desire for revenge and letting the creature just be the creature.
Yeah.
It's a wonderful moment, but it's not an emotional powerhouse.
No.
Because there is this undercurrent in that scene that nobody is taking it seriously, right?
Yeah.
Right. And so it lacks the emotional punch.
Yeah.
But the creatures were beautiful.
Yeah, the effects in this movie were awesome. I do have one question though. Let me see. What was Jeff Goldblum shooting around that time that had him so jacked? He was big.
He
was big.
I have no idea, but since you brought up Jeff Goldblum, there's one thing that I found really surprised me.
Yeah.
I'm not a Jeff Goldblum fan.
Yeah.
I acknowledge that he has a tremendous amount of talent.
Yes.
And his early work, I really enjoyed him in The Fly.
Yeah.
I enjoyed him in Jurassic Park.
Yeah.
But a lot of the films like Thor, where he's just cartoonish, there's a lot of stuff. But I really liked his performance in this movie.
Yeah.
And for not being his biggest fan, I really liked what he did in this movie.
I feel like Jeff Goldblum's one of those actors who, when there's several actors out there who, when you have, especially earlier in their careers, when they're desperate to make it big and they're going to be, they're easier to direct.
Mm-hmm.
They're less of a personality. They're less of that powerhouse, I'm here because you're hiring me for me,
right?
Not for my acting,
right?
Then, earlier in their career, when you can kind of rein them in and direct them more, they typically give you much better performances, and that's what establishes them as such a good actor. Right. Whereas once they hit a certain level of stardom, you kind of can't. And the directors realize that they can't tell them what to do quite as much. They can only kind of guide their acting. I think Nicolas Cage is a good one because if you can harness Nicolas Cage and if you can channel him, he usually gives a better performance than if you just say, "Yeah, Nick, just scream at the camera for 5 minutes."
Right. This is very definitely a harnessed and controlled Bill Murray.
Very.
Right. Mm-hmm. And that was the movie good. So if you have not seen this movie, I would say go see it.
Yeah,
Most definitely
go see it.
And
it's a very, very interesting, quirky, and funny little movie.
Well, and I will see more of this. I think we're very definitely going to do the Fabulous Mr. Fox?
Fantastic Mr. Fox.
Fantastic Mr. Fox. That's
correct. Based off of a Roald Dahl book.
That's what I thought. And you are a big Dahl fan.
Yeah, and Fantastic Mr. Fox, the book, is a great book. So I'm interested to see. I think it has Jeff Clooney playing Mr. Fox.
Jeff Clooney?
George Clooney.
George Clooney?
My bad.
Okay. No, I was wondering if there was a different Clooney
George
out
Clooney.
there.
My bad. George Clooney. We were talking about Jeff Goldblum.
Right.
So
Yeah. No, gotcha. Yeah. No, that's okay. You know, and then
George Clooney. I think. I'm not sure.
I was getting out of the shower this morning and I was thinking about this movie and I was wondering, what was I doing in 2004 that I completely missed that this movie came out? And I realized this morning...
There's a lot going on in 2004.
2004 was a complete blur for me.
Yeah.
It was one of the more challenging years of my life. And 2005 was even worse.
Yeah.
Right?
2004, yeah.
So, you know, it was just a matter of Noah's youngest sister was born and had health challenges, and so we spent a good portion of 2004, 2005 dealing with those. And so I didn't even know this movie existed.
Yeah, me neither.
In fact, I don't think I could tell you any movie that came out in 2004.
That's fair.
Off the top of my head, or 2005.
Fair. Yeah.
Yeah. It was like being completely removed from society and immersed in your own little world.
Yeah.
So I'm getting caught up. Thanks again for the recommendation. And I will say, if you have other movies you would like us to review and to watch and talk about, drop them in the comments. We love to do this.
Yeah. It helps us know what we should be focusing on. And it helps us come up with a plan. But we enjoy it, and it introduces us to stuff that we probably wouldn't have seen otherwise. So.
I never would have seen Everything Everywhere All at Once.
Yeah,
and I would have missed an incredible movie.
Yeah.
So, yeah. There we go. All right. That's this week's edition of Pork Chops, Rice, and Peaches. For all of our fans who have been saying, when does One Piece drop? We're filming it next week.
Next week. Should be coming out next week.
It'll be coming out next week. And... if you like what you see here, if you're new to the channel, please subscribe, drop your comments down below, keep them nice. We respond to all the good ones.
Mm-hmm.
We delete the bad ones unless they come from Dune fans.
Thank you so much for watching this episode of Pork Chops, Rice, and Peaches, and we'll see you next time.
I never get tired of cheap shotting the Dune fans.
Yeah, it's fun. It's fun.
That was a fun movie.
It was a fun movie. It was a fun movie. I am so glad we have modern wetsuits. After all our modern technology, I'm watching that and I'm like, they don't even have a BCD. They don't even have a regular, normal regulator.
Right.
You know? I'm like, dang, that is. I very much like my modern equipment.
I just hadn't.
Oh man, that would have been so funny. I could have worn my wetsuit.
That would have been funny.
That would have been so funny.
That
It's uncomfortable to sit in, but that would have been funny.
You could have worn the top. You didn't need to sit in the bottom. Oh, is it a one piece?
It's a full one.
Oh, gotcha.
It's a onesie.